Man, was week 3 fantasy football a ton of fun, and we had some interesting dynamics at play through this past Sunday's game. In this episode, I'm going to be taking you through some of my top waiver wire pickups here for week 4 fantasy football. We still have Monday Night Football to go at the time of recording this video, but we're going to look ahead here to some of those early candidates that look to be the best options to add for your rosters here moving forward this season. So if you're new around here, drop down, smash that like button, click the subscribe button, and turn that bell on so you're notified every time I come out with a new piece of content. I'm posting fantasy football content here on YouTube multiple times a day throughout every single day of the week, all fantasy season long and beyond. So you don't want to miss out on any of that great stuff. But with that being said, you guys, thanks for tuning in. Kick back, relax, and let's start today's episode. All right, let's talk some must-add fantasy football running backs here for week 4 action. Alexander Mattison is my priority add here as we approach this next week's games here. It's a plain and simple, cut and dry situation. Dalvin Cook was knocked out of Sunday afternoon's game due to an undisclosed shoulder injury. At the time of recording this episode, we don't know, quite sure what that is. Last year, he did suffer a dislocation of his shoulder, so some interesting things could be at play here. There's the potential for re-injury of that arm. I know from past experience, once you separate a shoulder, it becomes a little bit more likely that that could be the case. I do not know the details if it was the same shoulder or not, but Dalvin Cook does wear a shoulder brace occasionally, or at least when I watch him play, I see a shoulder brace out there a good percentage of the time to keep that in proper placement, obviously getting him out there to play NFL football. So if for some reason he's not able to go, we did see him suffer that issue last year and then turn around and play a Thursday night football contest. He might not miss any time, but it is 100% worth your investment of a roster space to add Alexander Mattison here for week 4. Rostered in 54% of Yahoo Fantasy Football Leagues, 37.3% of ESPN formats. This is just something you need to have. If Cook is out, Alexander Mattison instantly becomes a lineup-worthy option here. They will cut him loose and give him the workhorse touches for this offense. He does have a tougher matchup here at New Orleans this coming week, but again, if that game script is favorable and manageable, meaning that they're in a close contest throughout here or have control of the contest, Alexander Mattison will have lineup value. He'll get the goal line carries for this offense, and he will see the valuable touches for this Vikings football team. So a priority add for me if you're looking for a running back that could be of use for next week, if you're thin at the position or want some, trade incentivization for the Dalvin Cook owner. Maybe you've got a higher waiver priority than them. Go out and make a play for Mattison. It could pay off for you in a variety of ways this week, whether or not he does play or not. Could be some trade bait as well. So Khalil Herbert, we actually had quite a few interesting dynamics at the running back position for this week. With injuries, Khalil Herbert is the next priority that I have here. Now, depending what we learn between now and, say, Tuesday, right before the waiver process on Wednesday morning, Khalil Herbert could become my priority add for week 4 here. But as things currently stand, I do think that if you get the option of having the Bears starting running back or the Vikings starting running back for your team, Alexander Mattison, that Vikings backfield take precedence. So Khalil Herbert for me, definitely someone that absolutely balled out this week. He's another player who, when given the opportunity to start, has delivered as a lead back for an NFL offense. Last season, he had himself a really nice game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a really sturdy run defense, and he's had some other flashes as well. In this game, we saw David Montgomery suffer a knee and ankle injury in the middle of their contest against the Houston Texans, and Khalil Herbert came in, took over the workhorse numbers, and didn't look back. He had 20 total rushes for 157 yards. He's very explosive out of the hole. 2 rushing touchdowns and 29 fantasy points in half PPR scoring, and alongside that, he added 2 receptions on 2 targets, a 100% catch rate for another 12 yards there. So 169 yards from scrimmage, a very explosive and capable playmaker here. And the best part about this is this Chicago offense is insanely run dependent. They lean on their running backs and play conservative football, protecting Justin Fields to a fault. In a game where they trailed and lost 27-10 against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football in Week 2, Justin Fields attempted just 11 passes. So Herbert, or whoever the lead back for this team is going to get the football. If Montgomery misses time, which he may be more likely to miss time than an Alexander Mattison here this week, therefore, again, that situation and dynamic could change where Herbert is the priority pickup come Tuesday afternoon when we've got more info here. This is someone that needs to be on your radars here and definitely someone to go out and make a play for. So Khalil Herbert rostered in 48% of Yahoo fantasy leagues. Go check him out, whatever your format is. Of course, check his availability. It's going to vary between what platform you're playing on here. And then Jamaal Williams, our third running back to add here for Week 4 fantasy football, rostered in 60% of formats right now. Jamaal Williams is a guy who, despite not having his starter go down with injury, he actually came in with an injury designation this week, really got a nice chunk of this Detroit Lions backfield opportunity share. DeAndre Swift came in with an ankle injury. He took a rest day from practice earlier in the week. It sounded like things were trending positively. Things were going a bit better. It didn't ultimately play out that way, though. And for Jamaal Williams, that's critical because we saw in a game with DeAndre Swift on the field, carrying that injury designation into a game gave Jamaal Williams a lot of fantasy viability here. He ran the ball or touched the football 22 total times. He rushed the football 20 times. He had 107 total yards and 2 total touchdowns, 87 yards rushing, 20 yards receiving. Very, very strong production. This is a physical player who is competent enough at catching the football to be used dynamically in that facet of things here, and is also a player who has goal line utility even with DeAndre Swift on the field, or in the lineup rather, even in games when he's healthy. Go back to Week 1 where we saw a similar dynamic where both Williams and Swift found the end zone. So if this is going to be a trend here in games where DeAndre Swift is nicked heading into contests, I am all over Jamaal Williams as someone who needs to be rostered. He's already rostered at a good percentage here, 60%, but this should be creeping into the 80s, even 85%, maybe higher. Even the shallower leagues, if you're a DeAndre Swift owner, it's probably a good idea to go out and get this share for your bench just because of the large role he's played in this offensive situation so far. Let's talk some must-add wide receivers here for Week 4 fantasy football, now transitioning into Romeo Doubs of the Green Bay Packers, rostered in 39% of fantasy football platforms right now. Doubs took the step we've been waiting for somebody to make here in this Packers offense in Week 3. Now, there was a couple dynamics going on taking place throughout this contest. Of course, first and foremost, the Packers' most productive wide receiver from Week 2, Sammy Watkins, was placed on the injured reserve this past week due to a hamstring issue. That's not going to be a short-term fix here. It's the classic Sammy Watkins early season syndrome. He comes in, makes a couple big plays, looks really nice, and then leaves you, kind of scratching your head wondering where the heck did he go. So Romeo Doubs in this matchup. Christian Watson also an inactive play due to injuries for this week as well. Stepped up to the plate, took control of this receiving room, and is definitely the number one pass catcher in my book for fantasy football purposes going forward here. More opportunities than Allen Lazard, a red zone look as well. Both players scored a touchdown this week, but I think he has the highest ceiling at this point in time of any Packers pass catcher based off of the information we have right now. I love me some Christian Watson. I think he's a viable lineup play later in the season, hopefully, if he breaks out here. But what Romeo Doubs was able to do was be a multifaceted player with his involvement for this team. He was catching passes at the line of scrimmage. He was very good in the short intermediate RPO game. He was doing a lot for this football team, contested catches. He had some jitters early. He almost dropped his touchdown catch. He almost didn't get his head around live watching that at full speed. I was like, turn. And he ends up, catching it right on the button and, just kind of bowling his way into the end zone there. And then he actually fumbled a deeper reception he had as well, but he did catch all 8 of his targets here. 8 receptions, 73 yards, and a receiving touchdown. He reminds me a little bit of some former Packers. He's kind of got this bigger, clunky nature like a Jared Cook. Those of you that are Packer fans might know what I'm talking about there. And he also reminds me of a slightly leaner James Jones. He's a very thick build, very muscular player as well. Not the fastest guy in the world, but has a really nice tool set. So I like Romeo Doubs going forward here. Green Bay is going to have to incorporate these younger players and get them touches. this season in some way, shape, or form. Doubs is my favorite option to do that right now. And like I said, I still like Allen Lazard, but I think that the heights that Romeo could potentially soar to here that range of outcomes includes being Green Bay's number one pass catching option this season. Isaiah McKenzie, I apologize, hardcore Bills fans or people that just, don't like imperfections in fantasy football videos. Yes, I know he wears number 6. There just isn't very good pictures of him available right now in number 6. So this photo is from 2021 or pre-2022, I guess, rather. In number 19, he has since transitioned. I apologize. I'll just say that now. Isaiah McKenzie, though, rostered in 41% of leagues, is an absolute crime. As I was scrolling through the waiver availability, looking for some players with some lower rostership to talk through in today's waiver episodes, you have to add Isaiah McKenzie. It's just a situation tied to a quarterback with such great upside, playing a role for this offense that's far too valuable to just let someone else in your league scoop him up. He is essentially playing the Cole Beasley role for this team that we saw last year. Now, there is one key difference in that situation that I'm going to talk through here, but that role in itself is very valuable. You're getting a potential for a high volume, week in, week out, slate of targets heading his direction. It's not going to play out perfectly every time. We saw in week 2, the numbers were a little bit underwhelming. Even week 1, the targets weren't awesome, but he scored a touchdown. But what you have here is a player who is extremely quick. You get inside the red zone, and he's kind of the last priority for the defense, meaning he's seeing very inferior coverage and just has to make a quick move and score. And you've also got a player who is a competent playmaker. He's quick, he's athletic, he can stretch the field vertically. He's a smaller guy, can get kind of tossed around out there, but his skill set is very valuable to this football team. Now, the one difference that I think makes him a little bit less valuable than 2021 Cole Beasley is the simple fact that Gabe Davis has established himself as the wide receiver 2 here. Despite the fact that Cole was kind of the interior, he was the slot receiver, and you had other guys like Emmanuel Sanders on the perimeter last season, Gabe Davis's role is a larger factor in this 2022 Bills offense. So are we going to see as frequent of double-digit target games or even 8, 9, 10 target opportunities for McKenzie this season? No, probably not. But you are going to see them come here and there. And this week here, we saw a very, very promising opportunity for Isaiah McKenzie, where he was able to put up a 9-target game, catch 7 of those 9 targets, and have 76 yards and a reception touchdown. So the opportunity is there. He's a playmaker. He can capitalize on that. I would love to have him on my football team here, or my fantasy football team. Zay Jones, another player whose usage and role in his offense is making me very optimistic on him. Zay Jones is owned in just 8.3% of leagues. This is a huge opportunity for you to go out and buy him right now. For me, Zay Jones, the biggest draw here is that it looks, to my eye at this point in time, despite the fact that Marvin Jones had a great game here in week 3, that Zay Jones has become the second most valuable pass catcher to this offense. And where I've seen him line up in the slot, out wide, put him in motion, they're doing a lot of similar things with multiple of these receivers. His role is not super drastically different from what we see from Christian Kirk. The difference is that he's just a better player in this offense, therefore commanding more targets and more opportunities. Zay Jones is putting up really, really good games here. He's got a collection. 2 out of 3 have been hits. He had his second 9 or more target game this season. His second 12-point fantasy game in half PPR scoring this week. Again, I love his usage. He's very under-owned right now, under-rostered in fantasy football leagues, and he definitely needs to be prioritized here. Trevor Lawrence has shown growth. He's shown the ability to take the step as a pass catcher that we needed him to do. And I think that this offense, despite the fact that it's not as talented as a Bills or, some of these other elite premium offensive rooms like a Miami Dolphins or, even the Jets have themselves. I'm not saying that they're the third best pass catching core in the NFL, but you get what I'm saying here. It's not the best collection of talent, but these guys can star in their role here. They can do some really good things. And I think Zay Jones is turning himself into a flex caliber lineup play, simply based off of his usage and quarterback play that is being provided to him right now. DeVante Parker, owned in 21% of fantasy football leagues right now, is my next ad for this week. I loved what I saw from Parker here. He had a really quiet first 2 games, but man, for being owned in just 21.7% of formats after being dropped at, a mass rate after the first couple of games, he sure bounced back without Jacoby Myers in the field. That is important to note because I think that contributed to the increased amount of opportunities. And for a guy who doesn't get too much separation, his jump ball status is very, very good. He caught 5 of his 10 targets, so a 50% catch rate on 10 targets is not very good at all. But what is good is 156 yards, and that's what he produced in those 5 receptions. So you're talking about a guy averaging over 30 yards per catch this week. That is nuts. He's a red zone weapon. He's a jump ball machine. And again, like I said, not someone to depend on every week, but in situations here where maybe the Patriots offense is a bit undermanned, something to look at. Mac Jones did get banged up in this game and end up leaving in excruciating pain. So hopefully for Mac, things play out in whatever the best case scenario is. You know, we don't have too much information at the time I'm recording this late on Sunday after Sunday Night Football, but thinking about you, Mac Jones, and DeVante Parker, of course, is more valuable if Mac Jones is in that lineup. Now let's move on to some other players here at other positions, not named wide receiver or running back, to address for waiver wire pickups. First and foremost, Jared Goff, I'll talk through today, owned in 29.5% of formats right now. He's a top 10 quarterback entering into week 3 fantasy football. Now, he didn't have the greatest game against the Vikings this week, but this is definitely someone that I'm looking to have as a quarterback too in a lot of leagues. His top 2 playmakers were banged up this week. DeAndre Swift was not fully healthy, and Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of turned his ankle funny in this game. That played a noticeable impact, and Amon-Ra St. Brown was gimping around out there, not 100%, and unfortunately, Detroit melted the game away late. But with this talented core of pass catchers, from Swift to Hawkinson to Williams to Amon-Ra St. Brown to DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds making plays to Jameson Williams, who hasn't even taken a snap of football this year, this offense has been humming, and Jared Goff is a very solid reserve quarterback to have in fantasy leagues this year. David Njoku, owned in 51% of formats, looks like the breakout tight end of the week. There are some other options here, but man, I underestimated what he could do with Jacoby Brissett. Brissett, when he's getting protected at a high level, not facing an elite pass rush on the other side, can do some damage. And we saw that here. 9 receptions on 10 targets, a 90% catch rate, 89 yards, and a touchdown where he went up and mossed a dude. It was a contested grab situation where I guess it wasn't really a moss, but he high-pointed that sucker, got up in the air, and then got both feet down in the back of the end zone on Thursday Night Football. So you're getting an uber-athletic tight end, like probably in the 95th percentile in terms of overall just raw athleticism, vertical leaping ability, and just, you know, in space, he's very solid as well. This guy brings a lot to the table. So if you can roster him in a deeper format as a tight end too, I like that. I think that you're going to see a situation where he very well might be the second most reliable pass catcher for this Browns offense. You've got Kareem Hunt in that discussion. Maybe I would love to see David Bell break out in time this year, but man, for David Njoku to do these types of things, it's a 1 out of 3, 33% hit ratio right now in terms of the amount of fantasy relevant performances he's had, but hopefully this starts an upward trend for Njoku moving forward. Tyler Conklin, another tight end that's impressed me at a relatively high extent here. I've not expected this level of consistency from him to start the year, owned in just 21% of formats, but man, he's got 7 or more targets each week. This could be changed by Zach Wilson's involvement in this offense. Maybe he doesn't like the tight end position as much, or Tyler Conklin, a new free agent acquisition. So that's yet to be seen, but he's got 7 or more points in half PPR scoring in each of the first 3 contests. Caught 8 of his 8 targets for 84 yards and 12 fantasy points this week. Waiver wire and streaming tight ends isn't always a bad option. It looks like Tyler Conklin might just be that option for your team if you're in dire need. Mack Hollins here. I believe this is our final player we're talking through in today's episode, owned in just 1% of formats, but man, did he go nuts. We didn't have Hunter Renfrow. That is a key note here to take into consideration with the ways that this game played out for the Raiders, obviously just coming into things. But Mack Hollins has made plays in stretches when they needed him to this year. 8 targets or more in back-to-back contests. He had 10 targets for 158 yards this week and a touchdown, scored 25 fantasy points. He's a huge body, large possession receiver. Not too great after the catch, but is a load to tackle in space. For me, I don't really think he's worth a lineup spot in terms of his starting viability with Hunter Renfrow on the field, but he was the most productive Raiders receiver this week and definitely made his presence felt there for this football team. So that'll do it for today's episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel here, and again, turn that bell on so you're never late for a new piece of content or a new episode. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.